Welcome to the official Boyz to Nerdz review spoiler cast for Suicide Squad. Came out last week. We wanted to give our audience a little bit of a chance to watch it, because obviously we don't want to just sit here reviewing a movie that you haven't even seen, because at the end of the day, we do want you to be the judge. As always, I'm Kevin here hosting this nice little chit-chat, and I have Steve with me.
Hello.
And I have Mark with me.
Hi, my name's Mark. It's a beautiful blue sky out there with some clouds. There's a building next to us.
All right, you're done.
Now it's time for Weather with Mark.
Let me talk all radio-ish. And then we're going to have Brian join us in just a minute. We sent him on a special task. He'll talk about that in a bit.
Get Mark tacos.
Suicide Squad came out doing great in the box office, killing. I think we all knew it would sell well.
Biggest August movie so far.
Unfortunately, the reception has not been good. Now, I feel like the critics killed this movie immediately, and I was like, oh boy, here we go again. But one thing I have noticed, though, is a lot of people on social media have been like, I don't know what the critics are talking about. I actually really enjoyed this movie. So I don't think the backlash is as bad as it was for Batman vs. Superman from the audience's point of view, but we've all seen it. What did you think about it, Mark?
In terms of the whole DC slate so far, this is more... I like this film a little bit better than Batman vs. Superman because the pacing was a little bit faster. It didn't feel as clunky. It was clunky in parts. Like, there were some characters they just introduce and some they kill off in Suicide Squad, and I'm like, what?
I feel like
freaking Adam Beach, he got the short end.
Yeah, but they needed to set that example though with somebody.
Yeah, but it didn't feel as clunky. But really, Adam Beach. Anyway, that's my qualm, and it didn't feel as clunky. We can get into the whole like plot and characters later on, but overall, not the worst film DC has put out, but that's not setting the bar high at all. They need to do better.
Yeah, I went to see it, not opening night, but pretty close. And I remember, when the lineup for this year got released, I was like, oh, Suicide Squad, I really want to see that. My overall opinions were feeling optimistic going in. I had Brian saw it before me, and he was kind of telling me his thoughts about it. So I was feeling pretty optimistic, but I'll be honest with everybody. I thought it was a fine movie to the point where I enjoyed watching it the first time. And there were definitely things I did enjoy about it, but there were just a lot of things that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not good.
I think everyone has their own, like, split in between the movie where it's like, oh, this is good, and then bam.
The easiest way I can explain it is it's something that I'm going to watch it once and maybe never watch again. That's how I felt about it.
See, when I first left the movie theater, I said, you know what? That was a pretty good movie. And then
he was the only one.
The more that I thought about it, I can definitely see where people are frustrated with the movie, and there was definitely things even after like immediately leaving the theater that I was just like, yeah, this part was dumb, and this part was dumb. Like, there were a few handful of things that I was just like, okay, that was stupid. But like, overall, when I left the theater, I said, that was a good movie. Like, I was entertained the entire time and everything. Now we're gonna get into this a lot more in depth, and Brian's up next to give his review or his initial thoughts, but I think like there's a lot that you have to take into consideration in this movie when you're talking about this as a standalone movie, or if it was a standalone movie, and when you're talking about this in regards to the spectrum of the whole DCEU,
which we might not know about until years later on.
One thing I will say too, and I do want to just a positive kind of with a negative. I don't think this was a non-redeemable movie. I think all they needed to do was just change like a few things.
Yes.
And it would have been great.
There's a couple things.
In my opinion, all they had to do was just take out the Enchantress character completely, because it was fucking stupid, and just replace that role with the Joker. And now, obviously, you couldn't do the same thing where it's like a god and everything, but why couldn't you have had Joker like take over the city, and that way, you know what I mean? that he fits into the movie better. Having him just wanting Harley back is lame.
He was just a throwaway.
Exactly.
There were more scenes that were there, but they were all on the cutting room
If
floor.
they just did that, and maybe, I don't know, I think if they had Deadshot, and not Deadshot, but Deathstroke involved somehow, I don't know, there might have been rights or whatever, but I think kind of pitting him against Deadshot would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would've been
and
cool.
maybe they have plans for that in the future. I don't really know what the rights are, but Brian, welcome. We said we sent you on a special task.
Yep.
Mark now has his taco, so we are ready for your thoughts.
All right, yeah. So I know you guys started, and there is a lot of talk about this, and honestly, it is what it is. So I'm just gonna tell you how I felt. I wrote it out because I've really been thinking about this movie a lot since I saw it last Thursday.
He wrote it out in blood.
I did. So obviously, I respect everyone's opinions. Like, everybody can spend their money and time however they want and like and hate whatever they want. That's totally fine. But honestly, this is one of the worst movies I've seen since 2009. Avatar,
was,
James
yeah.
Cameron, looking at you. Thank you. It's just like, I don't understand how this film even got to this point of what we saw on screens. I'm just want to ask the writer who is the director and the producers and the execs and be like, is it really okay for the very first Hispanic superpowered character to have a gang backstory in which he kills his wife and child, and then when he sees his fantasy of the life he could have, it's about sleeping with her again? So, I mean, that's something. I also want to ask if it's okay for the most popular comic book character ever, being Batman, whose backstory everybody knows because it's in everything, of his parents being shot down in an alley, to be put in a situation where he literally is in an alley taking away someone else's parents.
Not permanently, though.
No, not permanently, but it's not like she's not going to be scarred for life.
Yeah.
And then on three separate occasions in this, for a woman to be punched in the face to elicit a laugh. And it's just I don't get why that has to be in there. You have these characters, you can tell great stories with them. They're all really interesting, intriguing characters. I wanted to like this movie so much, and there's so many things that just took me out. I just think it's a poor excuse for a $175 million budget with one of the biggest studios in Hollywood behind it. And I just think we're just so lost in this every movie is either not that bad or just okay. And I just think we are scared to say that I don't know, I feel like we deserve better, not just as nerd fans, but just as film fans in general and fans of stories. I just want more from these characters, and I just don't think that this film gave it to us. And yeah, I guess that's where I feel like that. I mean, the first step in fixing any problem is admitting that there is one, and I think this film is a really big problem. And that, again, this is all just my opinion. This is what I took away from the film. But I hope Wonder Woman is good and rights the ship.
I agree with Brian in terms of this film didn't really offer much to the whole slate of not just comic book films of the past 10 years, but just films in general. I feel like this film promised to be something different, more edgy, more dangerous, if you will. I understand people wanted different things. People wanted an R rating for a villain-centric superhero film, and I get that. And I feel like superhero films need to take more risks because this market has been oversaturated, so we need to see something different. And I feel like Suicide Squad should have set an example, not just for the genre, but for DC itself. And it just turned out to be a very lackluster, by the bones film as a whole. Were there good parts? Yes. But as a whole, it could have been better.
I feel like this movie in particular really shows where DC is at, both with what they want to do with the franchise, and what we can expect to see. I feel like Superman or Man of Steel, it was a very different interpretation of Superman than we've seen before. It was a very dark movie. And then we saw Batman vs. Superman, where, again, it was pretty dark, and it started to bring a lot of elements. They were trying to put so much together at one time, because they're behind in the game when it comes to this. And then Suicide Squad comes around, and I feel what they decided to do is they decided to go completely away from making their own adaptation of the comics and making this a very dark and serious movie, and they put their Guardians of the Galaxy out as their third movie, and it fell flat on its face. But not only that, they decided to go right to the comics. Everyone's giving this movie crap, and this is why I say, as a standalone movie, if it was that, it really wouldn't be that bad of a movie, because this movie is exactly like the Suicide Squad comics. I've read through a majority of them. I think they're stupid, and I think that they're dumb. But this movie was a literal interpretation of that, when it comes to the characters and the dialogue and everything.
You do have to keep that in mind too. You gotta kind of know what you're signing yourself up for. Okay, you just can't expect to be blown and be like, brand new adventure. They are basing these characters off of pre-established things, but they are doing their own twist. I'm just saying, you said it's similar to the comics. So,
but that's just the thing, is I feel like DC doesn't know where they're at, because the past two movies, like, yes, obviously the characters are from comics, but they really didn't, like, follow hand in hand with the themes of the comics and so on. I know that Batman and DC tend to be a little bit more darker, or more dark, but this movie in particular was very light, and they just followed it straight to the T of the dialogue and everything with the New 52 comics, and it's dumb. Like, I don't know, at least my personal opinion is the Suicide Squad comics of recent have just been very mediocre. They lack creativity and thought out, things. That was one of my biggest complaints about this movie, aside from Enchantress, and I think everybody is on the same page with that, even people who liked the movie. Like, that's the stupidest display of her and her powers. Like, oh, she does magic. How does she do it? I don't know. What's she making? Some sort of machine.
She kisses somebody and it turns, I don't know.
Right, and she kisses someone to make them an army. But, like, again, I was talking to Kevin about this, is like, if she wanted to inhabit someone from her brother, Rick Flag was in the room with her when she did that. Why not just take him if they're gonna mention that the army is scared of her?
And her brother just, like, came out of nowhere. It's just like, oh wait, there's a brother, and like
some random guy in a bathroom.
Who decided to dub over her voice? I'm sorry, but that drove me crazy, because you could tell she was lip syncing. Like, it was not matched up. I know that you guys aren't, like, harping on that, but that drove me nuts.
Yes. I think everyone can agree that everything about Enchantress was so dumb.
Just could have kicked her out of the movie and it would have been better.
One of the other big thing that really bothered me about the movie was just the lack of creativity and lack of thought out dialogue. A lot of it was just very cheesy and like let's take this for example. It's supposed to be the climax of the movie. You have, Enchantress there, and you have Diablo, everybody's right there, and they're trying to cut out her heart. It's just like, okay, like, oh, she cut out her heart. Let's destroy it. Like, I don't know. I felt like that entire scene, like, the dialogue was just so lackluster. They could have done so much more with it. It could have made it so much more in depth. It was just so cliche.
Even just the fact where they've just fucking met 4 hours ago, and then all of a sudden they're all just like, we're a family, we're friends, we like each other.
I already lost one family today. I'm not going to lose another one.
Are you kidding me? Now, if there's 3 Suicide movies and they had done all these together and he said it in the third one, okay, I get it.
I didn't really have too big of a problem with
lame.
that. Like, I didn't have too big of a problem with that.
That's like Batman versus Superman fighting, and then when they finally make up at the end of the fight, they're like, you're my family. It's like, what?
Well, but that's the thing, though. It's like, there was never a point in this movie, though, when they were all at odds with each other. Like, yeah, they all hated Rick Flag at the beginning of the movie, but like they were never at odds with each other, though. Like, it's not like they overcame something and now we're family. Like, from the very start, they were already like banded together in the fact that, like, why are they doing this to us? This is dumb.
Killer Croc was awful. El Diablo was a cool character. I liked how he took that peace mindset at first. Freaking Rick Flag, whoever decided to cast that guy should be fired immediately.
He was awful.
That guy was terrible.
Originally, Tom Hardy was
would it have made it a better movie?
He was supposed to play Captain Boomerang, right? Or no?
No, Rick Flag.
If
If he had that role and nothing else changed about that movie, would it make it a better movie?
Well, as long as they stopped editing it where Rick Flair's haircut changed every single shot in the last 20 minutes of the movie, because it was driving me nuts.
It was just I can't say really anything redeeming about the fact that the first 20 minutes of the movie was freaking awesome. They set it up exactly how you expect this to be set up. Her talking and them showing that. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they introduce the Enchantress thing and she goes crazy, it's like, this movie's terrible. It's laughable.
I feel like I get that, but also there was things about the beginning of the movie that I thought were kind of pointless. Like when she's trying to get an approval for the Suicide Squad and she brought that to everybody, I thought that was kind of dumb that they're just like, no. And she says, well, we could get you weapons. Oh, okay. Like that was pretty much to the
immediately
extent
convinced the NSA, like the biggest defensive minds in our country, are like, that sounds great.
I'm surprised that that's even an argument when freaking in Man of Steel an entire city goes to bits, and then fucking Doomsday and BVS, and they're like, I don't know about metahumans.
Yeah, and the whole metahumans argument, we saw Flash.
We saw Flash, and then the city is blowing up in the end, and Flash and Batman are literally
the only thing I can think of how they're
it's not Gotham.
The only way I can think of how they're gonna
but if it's like Batman vs Superman, is right next to it.
The only thing I can think of how they're gonna fix that is when they go into the Justice League movie, they're gonna somehow showcase what's happening in Suicide Squad, and these guys are gonna be in the middle of something else. That's the only way they can remedy
This does bring me to another point when we're talking about the mid-credits scene. When Batman or Bruce Wayne,
Bruce Wayne
was sitting with her,
one or the other,
and
he's not very good at hiding that he's Batman.
He's trying to get these files and this intel and information from her so that he can counteract what the Suicide Squad is doing. I feel like, okay, is Suicide Squad going to have a part of the Justice League movie, and are they going to tie these two things in together? A. But B, here's the other thing. I thought that the way that they did that was so stupid, because why would he need that information with everything that he got in Batman vs Superman? He had all of that information. Why did he need it again?
He's also the world's greatest detective. Like, he couldn't figure out
it was
where
obviously
does Batman, the world's greatest detective, get all of his information by playing networking as Bruce Wayne?
It was obviously just a ploy to tie the movies together.
The only new
and
file
he would not help her
Enchantress.
hide everything that happened with the Suicide Squad. He's like, don't worry, I'll help you bury this. I'm like, well, why? They're criminals. That you put half of them in behind bars.
That's one thing too. I wish that he had actually saw more Batman. I know it would be kind of lame after a while, but him catching them all, so they all had a vendetta. It was just Deadshot and Harley that he caught.
I know we've talked a lot and we've gone a lot of different places, and I know we're trying to wrap up on time, but here's the other thing that I wish that they would have done in this movie. It would have been so much better. Is when Harley was going to escape, why did they not let her escape? Everyone wanted to see in that movie Harley and Joker together. That's what people wanted to see. That was what they were marketing.
I thought that was the worst part of the movie when they were together.
That's what they were marketing this as. And it would have been so great for them to be able to break away for a little bit, and then rather than having this stupid Enchantress character and the whole storyline, that would have been the thing, is having to get her back, because that happens multiple times throughout the comics, that Joker shows up and she disappears.
Not even having to get her back, but just pitting her against Joker, so she now has that reasonable doubt of, what should I be doing here? You know what I mean? That would have made so much more sense. Joker would have been insanely involved. However, if they did do that, then that would bring up the argument of where the fuck was Batman? Because obviously Batman's not going to be involved if Joker is doing something like... I don't know. I just thought throwing him in just to get his girlfriend back was just awful.
And it's not even his girlfriend. Like,
one thing I will say about the Joker, I hated everything about it. The appearance, the voice, everything.
You hated it?
One thing I did like that they did with this Joker, which they have not done with Heath Ledger's Joker or Jack Nicholson's Joker, is they made him an established person. He is somebody that when they recognize the Joker brand or see the Joker, they are shaking in their boots because they're like, oh my God.
Yes.
In the first Batman, 89, he transforms in the movie and then he's just a gangster with a past. Heath Ledger's Joker, he was around like causing mischief and stuff, but it was the introduction of him in Batman. This Joker in this series has at least been around for years, tormenting Batman, killing Joker, or killing Robin, all that kind of stuff. And people... I just like how they handled that.
I feel like this is that Jack Nicholson Joker, only if he took a lot of drugs at breakfast and then by dinner he looks like Jared Leto. That's what I thought.
I just don't understand how somebody falls into it. I know this is not picking on them because this is kind of like Under the Red Hood and what's the Killing Joke, like the origin story of Joker falling into a vat of acid and that changes him. How does somebody survive a boiling hot vat of something? Like,
that's comic books.
Because it's stupid. Anyway, any last thoughts?
The one thing that my thoughts about the Joker is I can get over the voice, I can get over the look, I can get over that. The thing that bothered me, and the one thing that bothered me, was that they made him out to be like a gangster sort of thing, like where he was like a mob boss. Like
that's been done.
Nobody is going to go like, oh, I want to do business with the Joker. Let me go to this club where I can find him.
He runs.
That would not happen. The Joker's not a business person. He's his own person. That's one thing that bothered me.
I wasn't blown away by the Joker, but I didn't hate it.
That was awful.
And I feel like all of us got robbed a little bit because they did plan on more Joker time.
They sold this movie
film.
as like Joker is in this thing.
Joker's
and
fucking
Joker has nothing to do with this movie at
He's just sitting there looking at his phone
Like,
being like, I
literally.
guess I'll go get Harley back.
Literally, he has zero to do with the plot.
If you listen to Jared Leto in like every interview he's done in the past week, apparently there's enough Joker material to make an entire movie. And I don't know if there's going to be a director's cut. I hope so, because I want to see what was left on the floor. I want to see David Ayer's cut, the film that he intended.
I don't want a movie that's all about Joker. That would be awful. I want a movie that doesn't have Joker in it, because he was obviously just there to sell tickets and no other reason.
Well, hopefully he'll be in the Batman solo film.
I want a Joker solo film.
A Joker solo?
I know I just said I don't want that. No, let me rephrase that. I don't want a Suicide Squad movie that's a full Joker movie. Does that make sense? If they're going to do a solo Joker movie, that'd be interesting. But do we have any last thoughts, or are we good?
Do you want a Suicide Squad versus BVS or a Justice League movie? No,
because they would get their asses kicked. How does Harley Quinn fight monsters? She's a girl who can fight in hand to hand, but has a fucking baseball bat.
She ripped the heart out of a fucking enchantress guy.
I don't know. I'm just
she could do it.
I'm just saying.
She cut her heart out.
I'm just saying some of the heroes were very questionable. Captain Boomerang, awful. I don't know. Well, this has been the official review. I think we're all in the same boat that mostly negative, maybe a little bit of things that they could have done differently to make it better. Brian hated it. So let us know what you think. Make sure to like the video, or I should say the audio. Make sure to like the audio, subscribe,
like the audio waves.
And we will have a Boys to Nerds podcast for you coming up very shortly. Thanks so much, guys.